Good afternoon. Welcome to the Credila and Karan Gupta Study Abroad Conference. This is Karan Gupta here. I'm here to answer all your questions on study abroad. So please get started. All right. So I see the first question is, how do I finance my own education being an international student? What kind of opportunities are available? Now, this depends on what kind of program you're applying for. So if you're applying for an undergraduate or graduate program in the US, there are several scholarships that the universities offer. You also have the option of getting need and merit-based financial aid from the universities, especially if they're private schools. And if you don't get any funding from the universities, you can also apply for loans. We have several loans available. In fact, on this presentation that I have, we are going to talk about loans and the different kind of loans that you can apply for. So there are several options available to you, and it depends largely on the kind of universities you choose and also the country that you choose to apply to. All right, we have another question about what would be the approximate per annual cost. Okay, now the cost again would depend largely on the kind of universities and the city which you live in. Your living expenses also would change the cost. So if you have to look at an approximate cost, we're looking at 20 to 25 lakhs per year. Again, depending on the course you apply. So if you apply for the MBA, it might be a lot more expensive at about 30 to 35 lakhs per year. So if you're looking at a 2-year program or a 1.5-year program, we can multiply this cost by the duration to understand what the total cost is going to be. All right, these slides just talk a little bit about us and about the services Karan Gupta Consulting provides. We've been counseling since 1999. We've got over 13 years of experience in sending students to universities all over in the world. I myself studied at the University of Texas at Austin. I've also studied at IE Business School in Spain. Okay, so one of the top questions we get is, why should I study abroad? The number one reason why you should even consider studying abroad is the cost structure and the practical approach that universities have outside of India. Especially if you're studying in a country like the US, you're going to have tremendous opportunity in terms of what courses to choose, how to choose the courses, have double degrees, triple degrees. So if you're not sure of what you wish to study, or if you wish to study engineering with finance or philosophy with psychology, any kind of course structure that you decide, you could do it in the US. So course flexibility and practical approach of how the courses are taught is most important. So if you wish to take classes and not take too many exams, but instead would like to have book reports, or you would like to have more class participation, that would be a better way to judge your performance rather than just exams. So that comes under your practical approach of how the education is, especially in the US. Of course, countries, universities in UK and even Canada and even Singapore for that matter, have a certain amount of practicality and flexibility in designing your courses. Your degree is going to be globally recognized. So even after studying in these countries, if you decide to come back to India, you're going to have global recognition here. You can get jobs here. Companies in India also recognize your degree. You have access to excellent global faculty who are experts in the areas, faculty who are working, so they're up to date with the latest industry trends. You have access to excellent infrastructure. You have good libraries, laboratories. You have space to make different kinds of projects. Even facilities like creating your own business plan is possible on foreign university campuses. You may have access to scholarships. You get international exposure because you study with people from all over the world. You have very good job prospects because if you decide to stay back, a lot of the foreign universities give you the option of staying back. Of course, not every university gives that to you. So if you're looking at UK, you may not even get that option. But if you're looking at US or Canada, you can actually stay back and work there. So these are just outline of some of the reasons why people choose to study abroad. Now, this is a little bit about the different countries that are there and the options that are available in each of those countries. So if you look here, we've got the US, which is the most popular right now, with more than 100,000 students studying in the US from India every year. We have Canada, which is a little less than 30,000. We have the UK, which is also a little less than 30,000. We have Australia, which is at about 25,000. We have Singapore, which is around 3,000. And we have Europe, not including UK, which is around 20,000. So if you look at the fact, you'll see that US has the maximum number of students studying from India at the moment. Okay, I've got a comment that the sound quality is not very good. Is it better now? Can anyone type in the chat and say if they can hear me clearly? All right, great. Thank you. Now, let's move on to the entire process of applying abroad. So the first thing what you really need to do is start with your pre-application work. You need to understand what kind of universities you're going to apply to, what countries you're going to apply to. You've got to organize your finances, make sure that your finances are enough for you to pay for your education. So start with a little bit of pre-application. You have a lot of internet resources available to you. If you need help in deciding which kind of universities to apply to, we are there to help you as well. You then move on to your documents, such as your resume, letters of recommendation, essays, collect all your documents, then start with your application work, which means that go to the university websites, fill in your application forms, and then collect everything what's needed for admission and finally mail it out to the universities. Once that's done, your application work is complete. You then move on to the visa guidance, which is your last stage. We can do mock interviews with you, prepare you for your visas. And when all that is done, you can look at scholarships and loans. Again, I'll talk a little more in detail about scholarships and loans in the presentation. And finally, before leaving, there's a pre-departure seminar where any questions about foreign exchange, ticketing, etc. can all be covered. So if you look at this slide here, this outlines the major steps that are needed before you go abroad and study. All right, so this is just a little bit about the different exams that you need. So if you're an undergraduate student planning to go to the US or Canada or some schools in Singapore, the SAT will be a very useful exam for you. If you're a graduate student who's going to be doing a non-business field, especially in the US or a few colleges in the UK, the GRE is right for you. If you're a graduate student who's going to be studying business or an MBA, then you take the GMAT. And all students, undergraduate and graduate, should take the TOEFL or the IELTS. Both the TOEFL and the IELTS are basic English exams. These exams are very simple, and preparation time of 1 day to 1 week is sufficient to take the exams. The other 3 exams, the SAT, GRE, and GMAT, consists of English and math at varying levels. Some test your vocabulary, some test your grammar, but all of them will test your reading comprehension and your math of quantitative ability. More information on these exams is available on our website and also available on the respective websites of these exams. So for SAT, you can visit collegeboard.com. For GRE, you can visit the gre.org. For GMAT, you can visit mba.com. For TOEFL, TOEFL.org. And for IELTS, it would be IELTS.org. Again, we have coaching classes for the exams. If you need any kind of help from online testing to video lectures to actually personal attention from tutors, we can help you with that. Okay, now cost of education. So undergraduate students are students who wish to study at the undergraduate level, which is level after bachelor's degree. You're looking at 15 to 30 lakhs per year. The duration would be 3 to 4 years depending on the country you choose. So if you wish to study in the US, it's going to cost you approximately 4 years into 15 lakhs, which is a minimum of 60 lakhs, or at 30 lakhs a year, 1.2 crores. If you choose to study in the UK, it would cost you a minimum of 45 lakhs. And if it's in the US, then we're looking at, and if it's in other countries like Canada, again, it's 4 years. If it's in Singapore, it could be 3 to 4 years. Australia, again, 3 to 4 years. So the duration would directly affect the total cost that you're planning to invest in your education. At the graduate level, again, a master's degree in non-business field could be from 1 year to 1.5 years, and in some cases 2 years. Costs would be 20 to 30 lakhs per year. MBA, being the most expensive degree, would be 30 to 45 lakhs per year with a duration of 1 to 2 years, depending where you go. Generally, US degrees are 2 years, European degrees are 1 year. So your cost again would depend on that. All the costs that I've listed here are approximate. They depend on the university you choose. It depends on the kind of city you're going to live in, and of course the country. But the costs which I've listed here also include your living expenses, and as I said, would vary from university to university. Now, financing your education, a very important point, and a lot of questions I see here are based on finance. The three main areas of finance that you have from a university are grants, scholarships, and fellowships. Now, grants are gifts that you don't have to repay. Students may receive grants through the university or through private sources of funding, mainly based on their academics. You then have scholarships. Scholarships again are like grants. The only difference is that a scholarship may have a condition that you have to perform specifically well in order to qualify and to maintain your scholarship. So if you get a scholarship from a university and after 1 year your grades are low, the scholarship can be withdrawn. You also have fellowships, which are generally given to graduate and postgraduate students. These scholarships, these fellowships are like scholarships. They don't require prepayment or any kind of repayment back to the institute. They can be awarded by private organizations, but generally fellowships are awarded by the university that you apply to. In many cases, you would also get assistantships. Assistantships are like internships or work study programs, which you can get at the undergraduate or the graduate level, even though they're more popular at the graduate level. They require students to either teach with a professor for 20 hours per week or research with a professor again for 20 hours a week. And if you manage to do that, your entire tuition fees can be paid by the university and you get a stipend to cover your living expenses. So in essence, you don't pay anything at all. Of course, such awards are very competitive and very few students can actually get these awards. You can also work on campus if you don't get this award. Working on campus can earn you enough money to pay for your living expenses, but it may not be enough to pay for your tuition. And of course, you've got need-based financial aid by filling the Foreign Student Financial Aid form called the FSFA. This form is used by private US universities, not applicable to other countries. Now, it's very important to remember that not every university gives financial aid, and you should check the financial aid regulations before you apply to universities. Okay, so now assuming we get no kind of financial aid from the university, no kind of scholarship, no kind of work study program, then your next option is to take loans. We have state banks in India which give loans of up to rupees 20 lakhs. You need to have collateral security, or if you take a loan of up to 7.5 lakhs, you won't need any collateral security. The interest rates will vary from bank to bank. You also have private institutions like Credila, as we all know. One of the features of Credila is that the entire expense of your education can be covered through a Credila loan. So while state banks are giving you up to 20 lakhs, Credila may give you up to the entire cost of your education. Okay, so this pretty much summarizes your financing options. A little bit on this presentation is about our company and the achievements we've had before. We've got students placed in all top schools, all Ivy League institutes. In coaching, our students have got perfect scores in the GRE, GMAT, SAT, TOEFL, and IELTS. We work with many students who can't pay for their education, and hence we've helped them secure full funding from universities. We counsel students from all over the world. I myself am a writer with the Education Times and Readiff.com. We have information sessions in different institutes. So this is just a little bit about what we do. This is a little bit about what our students say about us. And this is a timeline. What's important in the timeline is that you must start the process early. So if you decide to go abroad, start your process 1 to 2 years before you actually go. So if you've started 1.5 to 2 years before, you can spend adequate time taking your exams like the SAT, ACT, GRE, GMAT, TOEFL, IELTS, whichever exam you need. And 1 year before, you start with the application process. So just to run through this, if you see point number 2, take your exams, SAT, ACT, GRE, GMAT, TOEFL, IELTS, whatever is required. Then you need to have your passport valid to actually go and appear for the exam. Once you get your results, you can select your universities, prepare all the documents that you need for admission, finally mail your applications out, then wait for the universities to respond to you, start with your visa formalities, and once you get your visa, do your pre-departure information like loans, scholarships, foreign exchange, insurance, and other smaller issues. So that's it in terms of the presentation. Now we can get back to answering questions. So please type in all the questions you have and I'd be happy to answer them. All right, I'm answering some questions here. I've just answered how to finance my education and what would the approximate cost be. There's another question relating to finance which talks about the best form of financing to pursue studies abroad apart from personal savings. The answer to this would be scholarships and loans. Other than this, there wouldn't be any other option. Now, scholarships for the MBA, again, mainly US business schools will be more likely to give funding. But based on your academics and GMAT scores, you can still apply for funding. There's a question about Concordia University. I'm going to answer that here. So I believe that Concordia University is an average university, but speak to alumni and current students before you actually finalize the institute. Now there's a question here about PR in Australia. Again, it depends. The question is about what state to get the PR from. I would say that first find the job, like send out online applications for your job. Once your job is done, then apply for the PR. I don't necessarily think that it would depend on a state, even though we've seen that cities like Melbourne and Sydney have more job opportunities as compared to the rest of Australia. So I'm going to answer this question here. Now there's a question here which says, is a one-year master's degree from the UK worth all the expenses? My answer would be that you will get the knowledge and international exposure both. But if you are looking for a job in the UK itself, then it's not a good option. Because as we know, the UK has stopped all work permits. Getting work permits for international students is very difficult, and most people don't get jobs after studying in the UK. Okay, another question that's been bothering me from a long time is whether we should apply for universities that are ranked among the top 20 or top 30. If you can get in, definitely. I mean, depending on your profile, apply to universities that match it. Now, the question is, should we only apply for these? I would say no. I mean, many of the countries that we're considering, especially the US, has a very large number of universities. I mean, there may be more than 4,000 universities at the undergraduate level and a couple of thousand at the master's and MBA level. So not all of these are going to come in the top 20 or top 30. I would say any university ranked in the top 50 or top 100 may be worth it. Okay, will there be any financial help for those who don't have good academics at the undergrad level? Probably not. If the academics are not good, you're not going to get a university scholarship, but you can still get loans. So if you don't get any funding from the institute, you can still try for a loan. That's possible. Okay, more information about studying in Canada as an undergrad student. Well, Canada has some fantastic universities like University of British Columbia, University of Toronto, McGill. You could apply to all of these. You don't need to take the SAT exam. You can just take the IELTS. Apply early because Canadian applications close early. And you can go online, fill in the form, upload your resume, essays, send your mark sheets and transcripts, and you should get an admission decision from the universities. What is the rate of interest? Now, the rate of interest would depend from where you're taking the loan, what month you're taking the loan, the amount of the loan, your repayment capability. A lot of factors would affect it, but it would be anywhere from 11% as high as 15%, depending on where you get the loan from. The repayment generally starts after you graduate. It can start after you get a job. Many banks have conditions of 6 months after graduation or at graduation. So they're quite flexible with the repayment as well. Generally, banks expect you to close the loan 5 to 7 years after taking it. Okay, we have a question about, can a student work part-time while studying abroad? The answer is yes. In most countries, except Europe, students can work part-time. In other countries, you can work off campus, but for US, on campus work only. Max duration of 20 hours per week. Okay, there's a question. What are the interest rates offered by Credila? It depends on the course. Again, depends on the financials, depends on your or your repayment ability, as well as the kind of security you're providing. A lot of factors go into that. I would advise you to contact Credila directly, send them an email or call them and check what the latest interest rate would be. You can also log in to credila.com for more information. My son has got admission in an undergraduate course. He has also been given some amount of financial aid. Can Credila help him pay the rest? Do you have criteria for evaluating the college? Yes, Credila can help you with this. I would recommend you visit credila.com, send an email or call Credila and they'd be happy to help you out. I have a very competitive GMAT. Fixed assets. Should I steer clear of the Ivy League? Well, no. About this question, which talks about a student having little fixed assets that he could collateralize or personal savings to pay for the education, the student should still apply to the top colleges, because if the GMAT scores are very high and the application is very competitive, there is a good chance that the student gets funding from the institute themselves. And therefore, I would advise the student to still apply for admissions, even if the finances are not very strong at this stage. Once you have admission, there could be other sources of funding. So don't let that stop you from applying. Okay, we have another question about what are the good courses to do after MSc Electronics. After the MSc Electronics, you could do the PhD in Electrical Engineering. You could apply for a second Master's in Electronics or Computer Science with a different specialization. Or you could work for 2 or 3 years and then you can do the MBA. So various options open to you. All right, I'm just going to spend a minute now typing some responses. Just in case you're not getting the audio, I'm going to type this out for you as well. What are the documents required when applying for a loan? What kind of guarantee will be required in the form of collateral or salary certificates? Generally, students would have to fill in the loan application form. They would have to provide documents pertaining to the academics. They would also have to provide their admission letters from the university where they've got admission. In addition to that, all the financials, including income tax papers, bank statements, and collateral papers would be needed. If salary certificates or salary slips are there, that should be attached to the application as well. Okay, we have a question. If I can rely only on the loan, can I take loan at university? Well, it depends on the university. In most cases, no. Foreign universities have reduced the loan they give students, and your real options is going to be from private lenders and state banks back home. What are the chances with the GRE score of 290 for Ivy League colleges in the US? I would say the chances are tough. It's not necessary that with the 290 you will get rejected outright. It also depends on your academics and what kind of percentages you have, as well as the essay that you write, the resume, and the letters of recommendation. Would it be possible to get a scholarship in my second year of undergraduate study, even if I don't get one during the first year? Yes, it is possible. So if you go to university and you perform very well, there is a chance that you may get funding for the second year. Okay, how is Mississippi State University for computer science? I think Mississippi State University overall is an average university. I don't think it's one of the best. I think you should speak to the alumni and current students of this university before deciding. All right. I see a question. How is Northumbria University in the UK? Again, I'm sorry, but Northumbria also is an average university. Speak to current students, alumni, get their opinion, see what they feel about the university, and then decide whether you want to go here. Also keep in mind that getting jobs in the UK after you study is next to impossible. You would be coming back to India and finding jobs here. There's a question, do you give funding for attending undergraduate courses? Yes. Credila and other state banks will give you loans once you get admissions. So yes, you can apply for funding. There's another question. Universities in Europe? Yes, you could apply there as well. As long as the university is accredited in whichever country they are in, you can still get a loan for that. There's a question, what is the difference between bursary and scholarships? It's more or less the same thing. A bursary is a type of a scholarship. It's basically a grant which you don't have to pay back. Cincinnati's for MIS, I think is a good option. It has very strong MIS programs and good placements as well. So yes, you can apply there. In my experience, students from which country repay their loans the quickest? I think I have seen European students and Australian students pay their loans back the fastest, followed by US. US, the only thing is that, I mean, the surety of paying the loan is next to 100%. The duration is the longest because students take 10 to 20 years to repay the loan back in the US. Okay, so back to the Mississippi State University question. The student has a 90% scholarship. Well, that is pretty attractive. So if you have funding restrictions and you have a 90% scholarship, I think you can opt for it. If you're not happy there, you can always transfer. So probably I would say go ahead with it right now. All right, there's a question, is there job security in the United States? There's no guarantee, let's put it that way, that nobody's ever going to guarantee you a job, but chances of getting a job are pretty high. I mean, the US gives you 12 months to 29 months of work permit after you finish your course. And after you complete this 12 to 29 months, you apply for the H-1 visa, which is valid for 6 years. And most of the students who are looking for jobs do manage to get it. So I would say that chances of a job in the US are very good, but there is no guarantee. How much loan can you get without any collateral? It really depends on your financial repayment capacity. So if you do have a very high paying job and it is quite likely that you're going to get a higher paying job, you may get a loan of even 20 lakhs or 30 lakhs without any collateral. So it depends on the institute you apply to. As a rule, 7.5 lakhs for state banks, and Credila offers up to 10 lakhs without any collateral. But again, it depends on your repayment capability. If you don't have a cosigner in the US, you will not be able to get a loan in the US. Today, actually, even with a cosigner, it's extremely difficult to get a loan there. Tapan, I have already answered your question on the good courses after the MSc Electronics. I told you you could opt for the PhD in electrical engineering or a second master's or an MBA. I think IUPUI is not bad, it's average, but depends on what course you're doing. I believe IUPUI has some good courses in molecular biology and some science related fields. Other than that, it's average. All right. We have a question. What kind of work permit can you get after an MBA in Singapore? Well, you could apply for a job, and once you get a job, the company will sponsor your work permit, and it allows you to stay in Singapore for quite a long time till you apply for permanent residency, which could be from 5 to 10 years. There's a question: Credila or SBI, which is better? Well, I would say apply to both. Let's see who approves your loan faster and who gives it to you, and then take a call. I'm planning for Germany. Given the current economic and work permit scenario, what are my chances of securing a job? What I have seen is that people who speak German have a greater chance of getting a job in Germany. So if you just speak English, chances are going to be low. How is China, South Korea, and other Eastern Asian countries compared to studying in the West? I don't think that the Eastern and Asian countries have much international diversity. And if you're looking for international diversity and a more globally recognized degree, you should pursue your education in the US, Canada, or another Western country. Of course, this depends from university to university. So you could find an excellent school in China and an average school in the US and vice versa. How much liquid cash we should have in our account apart from the loan? Well, when you look at your assets, which is your loan, your liquid cash, your mutual fund shares, deposits, looking at all of it, it should be apparent to any visa officer that you can pay for your education. All right. We have another question now. Okay. The question is, can you recommend some good product design courses or schools in Europe? What are the courses at class 11 and 12 required to apply? You can do anything in the 11th and 12th. You can do arts, commerce, science, IB, A levels, any board that you want to, and still apply for product design later. Some of the schools you could look at would be, I guess, Instituto Marangoni in Italy. You could look at the London College of Fashion. There are several other colleges which, if you do a Google search, you'll come across. I'm going to list a few here right now. Now, your question is, if I have to work in the US and then again study, will I get a visa and loan? Yes, it is possible. You could get your visa again. You could get a loan for your second degree as well. Depends on the bank, depends on your repayment capability, and depends if you can pay the first loan back or not. Once again, I'm typing out all my responses as we speak so that you have a copy of the responses just in case you can't hear me clearly. Is pursuing a second master's from the US beneficial? Yes, most certainly, especially if you are not getting a job after the first master's or if you want to pursue something different. I've already answered the question on Mississippi State University, saying that it's an average university, but if the student has a scholarship, then they should consider the school. If you don't have a good financial background, on what basis can you get a loan? What area of my profile could be improved to get the loan? Well, if you don't have a good financial background, your academics can also play a role. You could get a loan of up to 10 lakhs without having any kind of collateral. And if your profile is good, you could even get a scholarship from the university. So you still could possibly get admission, scholarship, loan without having a good financial background, of course, to a certain extent only. And if you want to improve this, then I guess file better tax papers, earn more money, make more savings. That would improve your financial profile. All right, Tapan has asked another question. Can you tell me some good universities in the US to study degree related to electronics? We could apply to the University of Southern California, Penn State University, University of California at LA, Berkeley. Then you've got the top schools like Stanford, MIT, Caltech. In the East Coast, you've got Boston University. Then down back in the South, you've got UT Austin. There are tons and tons of universities which offer the degree in electronics. I would recommend look at the admission requirements, look at your profile, look at your GRE, and then take a call. All right, there's a question. How host country will help the students for their permitted working hours to get well-paid job? Well, the university that you're in does put up listings of what jobs are available, and you could apply for those jobs and see if you qualify for them. And if you do, as I said earlier, you could get enough funding to pay for your living expenses, but you will not be able to fund your tuition through your on-campus job. IUPUI for medical informatics is a good school. Overall, I feel IUPI is average, but anything relating to bio, molecular bio, and medicine, I think IUPUI is a good option. There's another question, which is better, Singapore or UK, not job-wise? Well, I would say depends on the university. So if you're getting into a good school in Singapore, good option. If not, then UK is also fine. It's very difficult to compare countries. Instead, we should be comparing universities. So for example, you can get National University Singapore much better than University of Leeds in the UK, or Manchester Business School much better than Singapore Management University. So you really have to compare institutes and not just countries. There's a question about liquid cash spending. I answered that question already. You have to show enough liquid funds to pay for your entire education. I presume this question is regarding visa. So you should convince your visa officer that you have enough liquid cash, shares, mutual funds, other forms of movable assets, along with a loan if needed to pay for your education. How can Karan Gupta Consulting help with choosing schools and landing a scholarship? Well, we have experience of over 13 years. We know the different types of universities that are out there, the different types of funding options that are available to you. And therefore, based on your profile, we help you shortlist the right kind of colleges you should be applying to, keeping in mind any kind of financial restraints that you have. We can help you out. Our website is karangupta.com. You can connect with us. All right. There's another question. A good university to study the PhD in biomaterials, and any suggestions with that? I like Johns Hopkins University. They have a lot of research going on relating to biomaterials. You could also have a look at the University of Southern California, University of Texas at Austin. All these universities are quite good for your field. When the visa people check a bank account, how far behind is the check from today? Generally 3 to 6 months, if they check it at all. Many visa officers don't check the bank statements. Okay, another question on visa. How much cash in bank and property valuation? Your liquid assets, not including property, should be sufficient to pay for your entire cost of education. How is the student life in Canada as compared to that in the US? We see a lot of similarity in the campuses and universities between the Canada and the US. I don't see the student life very different. It's very, very similar. When I say that, it means you have access to all kinds of extracurricular activities, access to professors, access to student clubs. What percentage of students doing the MBA abroad in top 50 default on loans? I would say that very tough to give a particular number, but given the current scenario, given the fact that all students are not getting jobs, I would say that people who don't have any collateral, the rate of default is much higher on those loans because the students believe that they have nothing to lose. And in such loans, I would put the rate of default as high as 30 or 40%. People who have given a collateral security, their rate of default would be very, very low. I would put that less than 5% or 10%, depending on where the students come from, the kind of loan they've taken, and whether they have a job or not. There's another question. Is living in the US costlier than Singapore? Well, it depends on the city you choose in the US, but the cost can be more or less equal. Any good colleges for psychology in Canada? I would say have a look at the University of British Columbia, University of Toronto, and McGill University. I also see there's a question here on MSc in Biomedical Engineering in Germany. I would recommend that you contact DAD India. They are the ones who handle German admissions, and they would give you a list of universities as well. All right. We are done with the session today. I thank you very much for attending the session. I hope we've been useful and I hope we've answered your questions. In case you have any more questions, feel free to send us an email at kgc@karangupta.com. If you have any questions on Credila or on how to get loans, please visit credila.com. You can email them, you can call them. And once again, I would like to thank Credila for organizing this session. I hope we've been useful. Thank you very much. Have a good day.